This morning, I would like to share a story. It's a true happening, something that just took place. I'm not sure, was it this week or last week? There was a Amish girl here in Geauga County that took her life, and the mother and the father of the girl had a lot of problems, I guess. The mother was living in the house, the father was living in the shop, and the girl was living in another house. So this is about a dysfunctional family. Of course, this is an Amish family. The mother made the girl, forced her girl that was not living with her to let her married sister move in with her. I guess the mother had all but disowned her daughter, and I guess it went really bad between the mother and the daughter. So that's the story for this morning. And I know some of you will know my friend Eli Yoder, which does a lot of videos talking about the Amish and stuff. And I know when his father took his life, they were not going to bury him in the cemetery. And so the father, he wanted to have a viewing and a funeral for the daughter. And here in Geauga County, that is normal. But the mother was so stiff-necked and bullheaded and whatever that she would not allow it. So they ended up having the viewing and the funeral here in this church house instead of the traditional Amish viewing and funeral. And then because of that, she got buried here in this cemetery that is right behind the church. This is not a usual practice for the Amish here in Geauga County, because I started asking questions. One of the people that I drive, I am a taxi driver, and my background is Amish. I left the Amish in 2008, and because of that, they tell me quite a bit more than they would any other person, just any other person. So I can ask questions usually, and I get an answer, but I know, I also happen to know when not to ask questions and what questions not to ask. So that's how I got this information. I ask questions. I actually asked these questions from an Amish minister. And he told me that usually they would put her in an Amish cemetery with everybody else, and they would have a viewing and a funeral. But because of the circumstances being the way they were, the mother not loving her daughter, and things like that, the father, which lived in the shop, the mother lived in the house, there was a lot of conflict there. And he decided, you know what, I'm going to go up the road, which this church house here is not very far from where they live. They're right here in the neighborhood. So the father obviously loved his daughter enough, and his mother and her mother, I guess you could probably say, didn't really love her daughter. So that's why the funeral and the viewing ended up being in a I'm not sure what I should call it. Around here, they sometimes call them Yankees, sometimes they call them outsiders, sometimes they call them English. But English is probably the one I hear the least. I'm trying to think. But they have different ways of describing, but I didn't grow up in this area, but it's because I used to be Amish. And they drive with me. I get a lot of information. But there are times that they are talking and they don't want me to hear it. I know when those times are, and I know when they don't want me to hear it, so I try to respect them in that. But they tell me a lot. They tell me a lot of things. And I have already heard, I have already had them say to me, "You are one of us." Meaning they will trust me with things that I probably shouldn't use the word trust, but I'm guessing in a sense that's probably more of a correct word to use there than I realize. They would trust me more than an outsider. But back to the story of this girl that took her own life. She used a gun, she took her own life. And you don't really hear that in the Amish communities where a woman takes her own life with a gun. As a matter of fact, you don't hear it a lot where women take their own life, period, amongst the Amish. It does happen. Don't get me wrong, it does happen. But she was kind of, looking back to when I was a teenager, I was very suicidal, and it felt at times like there is no other way out. There is no alternative. There is no other way out. And I'm guessing that's what she was feeling. There is no other way out. There's nothing else I can do. I'm guessing that's what she was feeling. I'm guessing she was feeling that there is no hope. I kind of wish I would have known about the situation beforehand. Maybe I could have talked to her. Because my heart goes out to people like that. Because I know what it's like when there is no hope. But since this has happened, the mother agreed that she will go somewhere and get help. That's all fine and dandy. That's all great. And we all can be glad for that, and we can pray for her. We can pray for the family. But it's a little late. It's just a little late. I mean, we could think, well, what good is it going to do now? The damage is done. But just maybe, if she goes for help, she can get back with her husband. Just maybe she can learn to not be so controlling and manipulative. Maybe she can learn a better way. Even though it's not going to bring her daughter back. Even though it's not going to save her daughter. It's a little too late to save her daughter. But maybe she can save somebody else. Maybe she can save her marriage. Maybe, there's always hope. I don't know why I didn't kill myself back then. I don't know. Somehow God spared me. But there is one thing that I do know. Back then, even not being born again, before I was converted, even back then, I knew about heaven and I knew about hell. I knew about Jesus. I knew what Jesus did for me. I knew why Jesus died. Somehow, He kept me from taking my own life. The thing of it is, I always thought about hell, and I was taught that people who take their own life go to hell. In the community where I grew up, that was a normal teaching. I don't know. Do they or don't they? When a person is pushed and pushed and pushed to the point where they don't really know what they're doing. I don't know. But one thing that I do know, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me, through Jesus. And he also says, except ye be born again, we cannot see him. We cannot enter his kingdom. But I'm not the judge. Neither are any of you who ever watched this. We're not the judge. God has the final say. He is the final judge. So I don't know. After death, there is no hope. There is, there is hope as long as we draw breath. As long as we draw breath, we can repent. We can turn to Jesus. We can cry out to Jesus. And he will save our soul. But after we draw our last breath, that is over. That is it. There is no other opportunity. I just figured I'd share that story with you and share some love. Don't judge people, no matter what they do. Don't judge them. I might speak more on that some other time, judging others. Y'all have a great day. I want to go eat breakfast now.